John, thank you. Good morning. And it really is a pleasure to be here as part of Responsible Business Week, and in particular to speak about one element of creating a healthy and supportive workplace. We at Deloitte are now recognized, I think, as being a leader in the business world in creating a more open culture about mental health and building the personal resilience of our people. And my purpose today is to explain why we think this is not only the right thing for us to do in terms of supporting our people, but also as a key element of our responsibilities as a leading business, but also in line with our commercial ambition and aspiration. Now, in saying that Deloitte is a pioneer, I'm not, of course, saying we always get it right. We're a very large business with hundreds of partners, thousands of people in the UK. And as you'll all be aware, any culture change takes time, effort, and commitment from our senior leaders, not just myself and my executive. Now, we recognize there's a long history in society as a whole of stigma and fear of disclosure and even discussion, as Paul mentioned earlier, about mental health. And no business can change that overnight. However, the fact that we won't always get it right is not a reason, in our view, for not publicly stating our intention and commitment, and we're very pleased with the progress we've made thus far. I was proud last year to be with Paul when we publicly signed the Time to Change pledge on behalf of Deloitte, expressing our commitment to tackling stigma and discrimination in the workplace. This has been very strongly welcomed in our firm, and I was pleased and frankly even surprised at the level of interest and engagement it got from our people. Our staff really believed it said something about who we were as an organization and what we stood for, that we're prepared to take a leading position on the Time to Change. And I would echo Paul's comments in urging others in the room who haven't yet had the chance to do so to take that same step. Now, those of you who know us as a firm will know that we pride ourselves on being highly commercial, ambitious, aspirational, and a very professional business. And as such, the uninformed observer might not immediately have thought that we're the type of organization to take this agenda so seriously. But it's exactly because of our focus on high performance and the need for our people to operate consistently at the top of their ability range that this is so important to us. As was said earlier, mental health, like physical health, is not all or nothing. It's not perfectly well or ill. It's a continuum, and it's in everyone's interest to try and keep ourselves and our people operating at that higher level of their personal continuum of ability and health for as much of the time as possible. However, we do recognize the fact that, sadly, as was said earlier, 1 in 4 people will at some point in their career suffer from some kind of mental health problem. And as such, mental health is a feature in our business, whether we like it or not. So we strongly believe that a culture where people feel able to be open and get help early is better all round, rather than one where people are afraid to talk, keep their heads down, and probably over time find it increasingly hard to perform, potentially putting themselves and our business at risk. And for many years, we did in fact have a pretty good support network available when a person was in crisis or recognized that they had a problem. But it wasn't widely known, it wasn't widely used, and it was frankly under the radar, and often too late when it was called upon. And it was partly as the result of the experience and the leadership of one of our former partners, John Binns, who's here today and you'll hear from later. John is now an advisor to the firm on mental health and resilience. But it's partly as a result of John's experience back in 2007, 2008, that we realized that there was a lot more we could do in terms of early identification and prevention, and that if we got it right, we really could improve business performance, as well as encourage our people to get help early and support them. I'm also increasingly of the view that as I speak to other business leaders and clients, that there is soon going to be a time when it will frankly be old-fashioned and just simply out of touch for businesses not to have grasped this agenda. So in addition to having signed the pledge, we are, of course, now a key member of the City Mental Health Alliance, which is seeking to raise awareness across the city. And when I was in Davos earlier this year, it was interesting how for the OECD, they were focused on elevating the discussions around stress and mental health in the workplace, emphasizing the hugely positive impact more work in the area can have on the business as well as on individuals. So in practical terms, what have we done? Well, we have a multidisciplinary approach to well-being focused on healthy living, resilience, and enabling our people to feel aligned with our firm's strategy. Put simply, our mission is to support our people in being healthy, happy, and engaged so they can thrive in their career. The program aims to integrate mental health well-being into our wider program and has incorporated many features of the Work Well model. And it operates quite simply at three levels. Culture and awareness. We have a continual communication plan. Currently, there's a roadshow touring our regular partner and leadership meetings, talking about mental health in the workplace. I've also mentioned the Time to Change pledge, and we have a very public mental health champions network where partners in the firm visibly commit to talking about this issue and taking the issue seriously. We focus sadly on prevention. We run now a series of training courses. We've got one on at the moment, for example, for our new managers, people who've been with the firm 4 or 5 years, called Fit for Success, helping them recognize the importance of having self-awareness of their own mental health well-being, as well as that of their team. And support. We offer free access to counseling, self-referral to occupational health, and a highly publicized access to the advice from our mental health champions in the business. And of course, we also have now, as I mentioned earlier, John Binns as our retired partner and as an advisor to the firm on these issues. But perhaps the greatest symbol of the progress we've made in terms of highlighting the issue within our workplace, and it's important, is that last year we went through a process with our 15,000 people of having them vote on and select our corporate charity. We do that every 2 or 3 years. And last year, our people voted for Mind as the corporate charity for Deloitte. This was against stiff competition, as you'd imagine, from a range of other charities that historically would have been regarded as being safer choices with a broader appeal. And we've cemented that relationship with Paul and the charity at a very senior level with one of my direct reports, Paul Robinson, who leads our consulting business and is a great supporter of the work of Mind, being our lead partner with interface with the charity. I think for our organization, it's quite unthinkable that we'd have selected Mind as our corporate charity, certainly 10 years ago, possibly even 5 years ago. So thank you for your time. I hope that our journey gives you some food for thought. And we're now going to see the video I mentioned earlier, telling John's story and one of our other more junior colleagues, Tom, recounting their personal account of their dealing with mental health within Deloitte. Thank you very much.
Well, I think if you'd have asked me in 2000, 2001 about whether I thought mental health was an issue that I needed to be concerned about, or indeed that would be an issue for our business, I would have said no. It's the sort of thing that happens to other people, and it's the sort of thing that happens in other kinds of environment. Yet in 2006-07, I found myself in a position where I was suffering from what I later understood to be very severe depression, and ended up having 3 months off out of the business.
About 18 months ago, I experienced some mental health issues that were largely connected with my work, so levels of anxiety to do with things around sort of workload and the type of work I was doing. And this meant that I had to seek help within Deloitte. and it was very, very useful for me to have access to a mental health champion within Deloitte, somebody senior who had sort of broken down some of the barriers already and made themselves available for people to go and speak to confidentially. And through speaking to the mental health champion, I was then able to be really advised on the best sort of route for me to take. So then went and spoke to occupational health and received further support from that point on.
Many people feel that if they are to admit to suffering from some kind of stress-related depression issue, they will be regarded as weak or as incapable of doing their job. I think we've made some significant strides to improve the culture around that, and indeed that's what today's event is about.
I think the most supportive part of what people at Deloitte were able to do for me was, first of all, taking my problem kind of seriously and giving me the time and space that I needed to actually deal with that. So ended up having about 3 or 4 weeks off work. And then the support once I came back into the workplace, so that was on a phased return basis. So both the support I had from occupational health in putting that in place, but then also support from colleagues to actually make the phased return work effectively. That was really the most important part. I think it's absolutely vital. I think in terms of leaders and senior people speaking out about mental health, trying to reduce some of the stigma, trying to really sort of advocate an open culture. That's really, I think, the only way that we're going to get improvement across the board in terms of how these issues are dealt with. I think it's important for Deloitte and all companies to invest in mental health programs for a number of reasons, not least of which is the fact that actually from a business point of view, it's extremely important to have a workforce which is healthy, happy, productive, so that people are taking less time off. Obviously the cost to organisations of people taking time off and then having to, for example, like myself, have a phased return can be really, really high. So actually from a kind of business and economic sense, it's really important to invest in keeping people healthy, both physically and mentally.